Hello and welcome. My name is Sanjay Joshi. I am the Director of Software Engineering at Globus Medical. And today I am going to talk about our imaging, navigation, and robotics product development with Qt. So, quick outline of the talk. We'll first take a look at a brief overview of different Globus Medical device products that are used in the operating room. We'll take a look at Excelsius 3D. That was our newest intraoperative imaging system. It was approved by FDA only a few weeks ago. We'll see how our Excelsius GPS robot operates in the operating room and what different functionalities it provides. We'll then take a look at some of the real life use cases on how we leverage Qt and its functionalities in our product development. Now, being a medical device product, we have to comply with several regulations, and we of course need to show how Qt as a third-party software plays in this world, and we'll take a quick look at how we approach it here at Globus. So, starting with Globus Medical Inc., the mission of Globus Medical Inc. is to deliver cutting-edge technology with a focus on research and innovations. And our focus is always promoting healing in patients. And anatomy of interest is musculoskeletal disorders. And Globus has been around since 2003. We went public in 2012. It is known as the fastest growing company in the history of orthopedics. The leadership has 200 years of combined experience in spine and medical device industry. So starting with the product portfolio of Globus, the first few products were implants for spine surgeries. These were screws, in the thoracolumbar, means screws that go in the thoracic and the lumbar region of the spine. So these screws are used for they go into the vertebrae to stabilize the vertebrae or to create space between two vertebrae to relieve pain. The cervical region is the neck region, so those screws are typically smaller. We also have innovative fixings which are typically done at the sacroiliac joint, which is near the waist. Globus Medical also develops intervertebral solutions. These are spacers that go in between two vertebrae. So these are what allow the spacing between the two vertebrae to stay constant. There are different types, again used for different kind of anatomy, different kind of surgery. In fact, Globus is known as leader in expandable technologies. Now, these are very specially developed implants. They come squished, they go in between the vertebrae, and they can be expanded, pretty much like how a car jack operates. So, Globus came out with this technology a few years ago and is considered the market leader. Globus also develops biomaterials. These are materials that encourage bone growth. Again, the idea in many of these surgeries is the screws and the implant and the spacers are basically only temporary placeholders until you grow your own bone to fuse two vertebrae together. Um, the bone can grow either in outside the implant, and with our recent additions of 3D printed technology, these are actually implants that are printed in 3D with metal, and bone can grow not just outside the implant but through the implant. Of course, all these products are hardware only, and Qt or software is not used inside these products. The first product with software and with Qt was the Excelsius GPS robot, and we are going to take a look at that robot and a few more technologies that came out of our division, the Imaging Navigation Robotics division. So the INR product, as we call it, Imaging Navigation and Robotics, our product portfolio includes the Excelsius 3D imaging system, that's for X-rays. We do navigation using an infrared camera, and the camera is used to either track instruments that are shown here with these optical markers or the end effectors. The end effector is what sits at the tip of the robot arm, and this of course is the Excelsius GPS robot, and this is effectively serves as the third hand for the surgeon. So Excelsius 3D is the newest addition to our product portfolio. It's an imaging system. and we'll start with some of the features. So this is the base motion. As you can see, these wheels move not just back and forth, they are moving towards, on the left and right. So they just move towards the screen, away from screen. And that's because these wheels are known as omni wheels. They allow for omnidirectional motion. And this motion can be either triggered with a hand switch or also by grabbing on this handlebar, which is shown right here. And our software can sense the force and torque that is exerted on these handlebars and change the motion appropriately. We can store the positions of this Excelsius 3D base and go back to the stored position anytime. Thus, if you took a fluoro shot here, you can go somewhere else and come back and take exactly the same fluoro shot. All this software, of course, written in Qt, and most of the commanding is also done by Qt. So the next type of motion is the gantry motion. The gantry is what houses the X-ray emitter, which is shown here, and the X-ray detector, which is this big panel over on the right side. So there are actually two Cs, they are nested with each other and they can rotate independently. They rotate not just within ourselves, but the whole gantry can tilt and wag. And this way we can take X-rays in a variety of different positions. We can of course store the position of this gantry with the C's and the gantry arm itself and recall the motion as case by case. This motion can be done with a joystick. Actually, the part of the joystick sits right behind this control panel here, or with user interface control or stored position. And one of the most useful ways, if you will, that this gantry motion is used is for 3D spins. So in a 3D spin, basically what we are doing is we are capturing X-rays at each of the 360-degree locations as these two C's will move together to complete a circle. Now mathematically, we take these individual images and reconstruct what the volume at the center would have been. And that technology is known as volumetric reconstruction, and we actually can do it in two different modes. It's the regular nominal field of view and also an extended or large field of view settings. Being a medical device, safety is almost at the top of our mind. And as you can see, as these two C's move together, we want to make sure they don't hit something, either collude with the patient who may be under anesthesia or other OR equipment. So we have a collision avoidance system that is built right into these C-arm motions. So the Excelsius 3D is the industry's first 3-in-1 system because it can do 3 different type of images. The first one is 2D fluoroscopy. These are typically low radiation images. They can be taken multiple times during a surgery. They give out somewhat grainy look at the anatomy, but they are low radiation. The higher image quality is known as 2D radiograph. These are more powerful X-rays, but at the risk of higher radiation. The third type of image our system does is 3D cone beam reconstruction or computed tomography images. So here I am showing a sample of how effective our metal suppression is. So we can see there is a screw here on this vertebrae, and these are different kind of views. So this is known as the axial view, there is a sagittal and coronal view, and this is a pseudo coloring. It's a skin on top of the 3D scan. And just to show where these 3 screws sit with respect to the vertebrae. Our Excelsius 3D recently won the Best New Technology from Orthopedics Award at the NASS trade show. NASS stands for National Association of Spine Specialists, and they had their 2021 annual meeting right here in Boston a few weeks ago on October 15th. And this is our team receiving the award. Now coming to Excelsius GPS, this was our first product to the market from our division. This was launched in 2017, considered one of the most successful launches of a surgical robotic system. To date, we believe we have more than 20,000 surgeries done with this robot, not just in the US, it's pretty much all around the world. With over 100,000 screws placed. So again, tremendous experience and a testament that this technology really works. So the focus of Excelsius GPS is threefold. It's improvement in time, the time to surgery, dose, because with this system you have to take fewer x-rays, so that means naturally less radiation for not just the patient but also the OR staff. And last is the accuracy. Because of a very integrated navigated solution, we can very reliably take the surgeon to the exact place they had planned. So this was the first robot to combine navigation with robotics. This also has most comprehensive imaging support. So our robot can accept images not just from our Excelsius 3D imaging system, but it has been doing it for a number of years from all other imaging systems as well that can be used intraoperatively. We used our own registration fixtures to allow us to do that. Our robot can also work with preoperative CT, which is CT scan typically taken in the radiology department, and then we register these images inside the operating room using C-arms or 2D X-ray machines. We can of course navigate only on 2D X-rays. Now not many surgeons would use it, but there are some surgeons who are actually finding that using our Excelsius GPS technology with just plain 2D X-rays is actually saving them a lot of time and X-ray dose. So our system comes with very innovative safety precautions, again very critical for a medical device. We have something called a surveillance marker, which is actually shown right here, which is attached to the patient, and this marker can be used to track navigational accuracy, or not actually accuracy, navigation sanity. Are things still where the computer thinks they are? Our robot arm has a force sensing technology. So right in the tip region, there are load and torque sensors that can sense torque and force in 3 dimensions each. We also do active navigation tracking. So the instrument, it's not just the instrument that is tracked by the camera, but also the end effector. So end effector has infrared LEDs, and the camera can pinpoint the location of these LEDs and tell us exactly where the arm is. To design Excelsius GPS, the first thing we had to handle was planning. And the planning uses a touchscreen interface. It's a 22-inch flat panel touchscreen monitor. It is draped in sterile drapes inside the OR. The surgeons would typically use 2 pairs of gloves, and we actually had to go back and tune the settings of this monitor so that it works reliably through this plastic drape and 2 pairs of gloves. And the way a surgeon would use planning this, they would drag and drop an implant, and I see one of the spacers here, and they can use these buttons to move it where they need to virtually plan the surgery. And that results into trajectories. So I see I'm showing 6 trajectories which are shown as purple lines that are coming out. And the idea is that in the operating room, after registration, the robot will move the guide tube to each of these purple lines. And that will allow the surgeon to insert different kind of instruments through the guide tube to complete the surgery. Now, in order for this to happen, we need registration. And in this slide, I'm showing the example of how we register 2 MRI scans to a CT scan. So this is 3D to 3D registration, and this is showing cranial surgery. So we recently launched our cranial application. So the same robot can be used for a completely different kind of surgery. Instead of doing surgery on the back for the spine, this robot is now being used for surgeries in the brain, for deep brain stimulation or other kind of surgeries. Of course, the software is completely different, the registration is different, the arm stays the same, but the end effector which sits at the tip of the arm had to be redesigned for cranial surgeries. In order to register the preoperative images to intraoperative scan, we use CT to fluoro registration. So the fluoro fixture is what helps us track these, and I'm going to cover a little bit of that later in this presentation. And the idea is effectively to create image to camera registration. So the camera knows where the image is in 3D, and now it can overlay CAD models of individual instruments. And that's what a surgeon would use in surgery. The third thing is motion. So the robot arm, think of it as a third arm for the surgeon. It has 5 degrees of freedom. It has a vertical that can go, of course, up and down. It has a shoulder arm, which is shown right here. The elbow is over here, and the wrist joint has 2 degrees of freedom. It can do a roll and a pitch. When the robot moves to trajectories, of course, it needs to move in a straight line. But with these 5 different motors, they need to move in unison. So they need to figure out their own acceleration, velocities, and how to modulate them as the arm moves up and down. And we do all with inverse kinematics, throughout our robot solution. Again, a lot of this part has been done with Qt. And the reason we like Qt is the flexibility and the functionality. So when we started developing this product back in 2014, we didn't really want to nail down our choice of operating system. We wanted some freedom, and Qt became a really good path to go there, because we didn't have to narrow it down too much. We liked the support, not just from the Qt company, but also from communities just like you. We like some built-in functionalities. Oftentimes when I was interviewing candidates, they would ask, so you use Qt for GUI or graphical user interface? And I would tell them, no, we use it way more than graphical user interface. And we are going to look at some of the actual real world examples. Apart from user interface, we are going to look at some core math functions that we use, how we communicate with peripherals, and even with the file system. Now, one thing I really like about Qt is the documentation and how easily it is available online. So looking at our user interface, again at Globus Medical, our focus is on usability. This is a company where the surgeons will work very closely, very intimately with our developers, software engineers as well. Even sometimes in a cadaver lab, when our software engineers actually get to attend surgeries on a cadaver with a surgeon, and they would walk us through what are the real challenges in an operating room. So our feedback was pretty clear. They wanted a fluid workflow. We wanted this application to pretty much look and feel like a smartphone app. And again, our focus was to make the surgeons as self-sufficient as possible. In other words, we don't want to send our expert into the operating room every single time to tell the surgeon, oh, now you need to click that button and this is how you manipulate things. We wanted this user interface to be effectively self-documenting in terms of software engineering terms. So to do that, the icons and button need to speak a common user experience language. What do the different highlights mean? What does a border mean? So on and so forth. Since we work with medical images, we needed to display image pixel data. So here I am showing the axial view of a vertebra model, and we wanted multi-touch manipulations. Being in a smartphone or in a tablet world, the surgeons wanted an ability that they can touch this screen. Again, keep in mind, this is inside the OR, so they don't want to handle keyboards and mice. If the screen is in front of them, they prefer to touch the screen, manipulate it the way they want, and they wanted abilities so that they could rotate the image to meet their preference. They wanted to zoom in, zoom out, and do all sorts of manipulation that we are so used to doing on our smartphones. And our choice to go with Qt was QML, primarily because of the flexibility, how we could wire different QML components together to deliver this user interface. QML architecture allowed us to do a very object-oriented design of these components, nest them together very well, reuse them from one application to another. We have spine and cranial right now. It was very easy to do quick changes and demonstrate them to the surgeon right away. Performance was great. Also the time with the backend, and this was a really clean separation between the user interface part of our software and the core math, which we do a whole lot of. Lastly, even if this implementation is quick, we wanted something even simpler. So we could use a mockup on sketch.io, and we could show these mockups to our prospective users, to our surgeons, get their feedback, modify the mockup as needed. And I believe now the mockup has an ability to directly create QML code. So again, all very handy, very useful. The next example I'm going to talk about is from Core Math. as I told you, in registration or in other workflows, we have the need to handle transforms. So transforms are mapping from one coordinate system or one space to another. So this could be in different ways. It could be image to image, for example, from MRI to CT, as we saw in the case of cranial. This could be camera to image, and this is how we register an image with respect to camera. So that's a camera to image registration. The CAD model to image registration is how a surgeon would plan the virtual surgery. The surgeon is saying that the transform from this CAD model to that image space is such and such. Lastly, we wanted an ability to concatenate different transforms, so you could effectively tie a CAD model to a camera through all these manipulations. We wanted abilities to rotate and translate these transforms as needed, and sometimes, to do that, we needed to generate Euler angles. And I'm showing an example here, of an image of a plane, with the origin and then 3 degrees of spins or rotations that this can support. The mathematical concept that wraps this all really nicely, really concisely is called quaternions. And lo and behold, Qt had a class that came built in. This was Q quaternion class. It allowed us basic construction and uses. It had built-in operators, especially for concatenation, for multiplication, one transform with another. The nice surprise was utility function to convert this to Euler angles, and as I said before, a beautiful documentation. The next challenge I'm going to talk about is talking or communicating with different variables. Now, a little bit of background on this one. So we looked at MRI and CT scans that could be done in the radiology department, but the camera doesn't know how to place these 3D scans in its space. And the way we do it is almost always by registering a CT scan to an X-ray image, to a 2D X-ray image in particular. So these are captured using X-ray machines that are shown here. The emitter, X-ray emitter is at the bottom, the detector is at the top. So we developed a registration fixture. It's called fluoro registration fixture that can be attached to this top. Because the SIAM machines, some of them may be 10, 15 years old. They may not have any optical markers that allow us to tracking. This fixture with the optical markers right here allowed us to track them with a camera. So this solved a tracking problem. We knew where the X-ray machine is in the camera space. But we needed an ability to capture these X-ray images that are coming off the screen and feed them into the robot. And we wanted this pretty much live because these could be moved very rapidly from one position to another. And many of the least common denominator, if you will, for these machines is the video stream. And many of these machines that are 10, 15 years old rely on an old composite video format. If you remember the VCR of the old days, they had 2 audio channels, the red and the white cables, and a yellow cable for video channel. So this was literally an analog stream. I think it's a 640 by 480 frame video. And now we have USB frame grabbers available to capture this analog video and convert it into digital format. Many people have used it to convert VCR tapes into DVDs or to digital videos. The challenge for us was how do we capture screenshots or sometimes even live streams from this video frame grabber cards. And the solution in Qt was the Q camera class. This provided interface with a variety of frame grabbers. So I told you about the composite frame grabbers. The newer SIAMs or X-ray machines have these frame grabbers that work with HDMI or DVI connectors. But to us, at the robot end, they pretty much look like another USB camera device. And the beauty was Q camera could handle almost all of these. We could very easily change the settings for the capture. We could probe the device for the status information. The viewfinder became really useful. Again, keep in mind we are talking about the old analog format, and the world was effectively divided on 2 sides. There was a PAL and NTSC format, and depending on which company made your X-ray machine, it could be set by default to either one or the other. And we wanted an ability so that we could see what the X-ray machine is streaming. The next example is the file system challenge. Again, not a very difficult problem to solve, but oftentimes when we are saving file to a disk, in our world it was saving file to a solid state drive on the Windows 10 environment. Again, being a medical device, our devices almost always run on batteries. They are plugged into the wall, but that's primarily to charge the batteries. Almost everything is driven by the batteries, and this helps a lot when we talk about the exposure to potential AC voltage to the patient or to the operator. But being, and we also, by the way, we also run these devices in kiosk mode, so there is no direct access to the operating system. There is no access to the power button, if you will, on the computer. So there are other subsystems on our robot that are managing power to the robot, and it's possible that power may be removed from the computer before a write operation is complete. So obviously the data that is being written may be lost. That was not the biggest problem. The hard to recover challenge is the corruption of data, because once the file was corrupted, recovering it from it was pretty hard. Again, not a very difficult problem. I'm sure it has been solved multiple times. We just needed something quick, a reliable way to avoid corruption. As you know, sometimes these problems, we don't realize it until it's too late. And now we need to devise a solution that's going to be quick solution. So the approach that we found was in the QSAO file class. Again, came built in from Qt, and effectively it guaranteed that the original file is not corrupted. Now the write operation may or may not be complete, but at least the data is not corrupted. And it was a pretty simple implementation with a QTextStream followed with a flush. And then a commit is basically what made the thing. Literally, I mean, the whole thing was so small. And I mean, again, as I said, we could have written it ourselves too, but just having it readily available with Qt saved us a lot of time. So coming to the regulatory side, now by being working on this medical device industry, we have to comply with several standards. The US, in the US, of course, it's FDA. EU has CE. Japan has PMDA, and many countries have their own standards, and these standards in turn rely on international standards such as IEC 62304 for software development lifecycle, usability 6236, and the risk management is ISO 14971. So these standards, 62304 in particular, pays close attention to any third-party libraries, and Qt is treated as a soup. It's a software of unknown pedigree, and that's a term from IEC 62304. And basically the way we approach it is decompose software into individual items and units. We do risk analysis, in particular the safety classification, whether it's class A, B, or C, and then we distribute the third-party libraries into one of these buckets. We of course need to document the requirements and then assess the impact on the risk. Finally, what we have to do regularly is to evaluate published anomalies or bug reports from the version that you are using, from, let's say, from Qt. And we can of course change the third-party software version, but we have to document the impact of these changes. So again, we have been doing it very successfully for the last 6 years, and I'm really looking forward to doing it for many more years to come. So that's it for this presentation. If you have questions, I'll be again happy to answer them live in this talk, or we can continue the discussion in the speakers lounge, where I'll be available for roughly 30 minutes or so. Again, thank you.